All right, let's talk about money. For so many of us, just thinking about our finances can bring on this wave of anxiety. It's that feeling you get in the pit of your stomach when a credit card bill shows up, or when you even try to think about the future. But what if we could actually pinpoint the exact mistakes that cause all that stress and then learn how to just sidestep them? Okay, let's dive in. It's a really good question, right? And the answer, well, it's complicated. I mean, we're always told to just save more, spend less. But life is rarely that simple. Credit cards, for example, are incredibly convenient, but they can also tempt us to live just a little bit beyond our means. And that can quickly turn a useful tool into a source of some serious financial pressure. If you've ever felt that way, believe me, you are not alone. In fact, a study on consumer debt found that this number, 96.8%, is the percentage of credit card users who feel either some or a great deal of stress from their debt. Just let that sink in for a second. Pretty much everyone with a credit card is feeling the heat. So, the big takeaway here is that this isn't some personal failing. It's a huge shared challenge. And the first step to solving it is understanding where these problems actually begin. So often, the biggest hurdles aren't even in our bank accounts. They're in our own heads. There's this whole field called behavioral finance, and it shows us how our own psychology, these invisible mental traps, can lead to some of the most common and, frankly, most costly investment mistakes out there. First up is something called overconfidence bias. This is basically the belief that we're a little smarter or more skilled than we actually are. This is a huge one in investing. One study found that 64% of people believe they have a high level of knowledge about it, and that confidence can lead them to take on way too much risk, all based on the gut feeling instead of, actual solid data. And this slide just illustrates that gap between our perception and reality perfectly. On the left, a study found that 78% of us think we're better than average drivers, which of course is statistically impossible. And on the right, you see the investing version of that. Despite all our confidence, only about a quarter of professional actively managed funds actually managed to beat the market over the last 10 years. Our confidence, well, it often doesn't match the results. Next, we've got loss aversion. Our brains are literally wired to feel the sting of a loss about twice as powerfully as the joy of an equal gain. This emotional gut punch can be absolutely disastrous for investors. It's the reason we hang on to a losing stock for way too long, just hoping it'll bounce back, instead of cutting our losses and moving on to a better opportunity. And then, of course, there's the powerful pull of the crowd. Herd mentality, or as we all know it, FOMO, is when we jump on an investment bandwagon just because everyone else is doing it. This is what leads to buying assets at the very peak of a bubble or panic selling during a downturn. In fact, some research shows that it only takes about 5% of informed investors to influence the decisions of the other 95%. Crazy, right? So, beyond what's going on in our heads, the next major pitfall is simply not having a map. Without clear goals and a written plan, we're basically just drifting. And that makes it incredibly easy to end up somewhere financially that we never, ever intended to be. I know, having a plan sounds so simple, but it is the absolute bedrock of financial security. Whether it's for retirement, investing, or just managing your monthly cash flow, the act of writing it down transforms a vague idea into a concrete strategy. Think of it as your personal roadmap for every single financial decision you make. Now, what's really interesting here is how all these common planning failures are connected. It's like a domino effect. If you don't have clear goals, you can't possibly diversify your investments properly. If you don't start saving early enough, you miss out on the magic of compounding. And if you forget that inflation is silently eating away at your savings, or you underestimate how much healthcare is going to cost down the line, well, you could run out of money right when you need it most. Okay, we've covered the mindset and the master plan. Now let's zoom in on the small everyday habits, those financial fumbles that seem totally harmless but can cause massive damage over time. These really are the small leaks that can eventually sink the whole ship. This data is just fascinating. It breaks down the specific habits of people who report high levels of stress from their credit card debt. And just look at these numbers. Nearly 60% only pay the minimum, which can mean taking years to pay off even a small debt. Over half share their card with others, completely losing control of the spending. A staggering 85% take cash advances, which have sky-high interest rates, and almost 70% never even check their statements for errors or fraud. These are the fumbles we're talking about. The IRS points out that the most common tax mistakes are surprisingly simple things. like rushing to file before you have all your forms, or a simple typo in your name that ends up causing weeks of delays. You could even get your own bank account number wrong and accidentally send your refund to someone else. It just goes to show you that these small details really, really matter. So we've laid out a lot of the problems, from our own biases to our daily habits. But look, this isn't about feeling bad about our mistakes. It's about building a better, more resilient future. So let's pivot now from the problems to the practical, powerful solutions we can all use. This quote just gets right to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? We often know what we're supposed to do, but our emotions, fear and greed, they just get in the way. The solution then isn't always about getting more complex information. It's about developing the discipline to control our impulses and just stick to a rational strategy. And a huge part of that strategy is preparing for the unexpected, because life is unpredictable. An economic downturn, a health issue, a family emergency, these things happen. Having a backup, like a dedicated emergency fund, is what keeps a surprise from becoming a full-blown catastrophe. It's your financial shock absorber. So what does this all really boil down to? Well, we can think of it as 4 key actions. First, build systems. Automate your savings and bill payments to take willpower right out of the equation. Next, stay aware. Know what you own, know what you're paying in fees, and understand how inflation is affecting your purchasing power. Then, be proactive. Don't wait to start saving or planning for the future. And finally, and this one is maybe the most important, control what you can control. The market is going to do what it's going to do, but your savings rate, that is all you. We've covered a lot of ground, from the psychology of investing to the nitty-gritty of credit card habits. And look, I get it, it can feel a little overwhelming, but you don't have to fix everything all at once. So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. Looking back at everything we've talked about, what's the one small, manageable mistake that you can start to fix right now, today?